Going now.
All right.
Hey, Fed Heads, welcome back to another episode of Cigar Chat. I'm your host, Trip. We are broadcast live on Facebook, around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network, and of course available on your favorite podcast catcher or on the classic method of watching us, YouTube. I'm here with my co-host, Jason. Jason, how you doing, brother?
Doing good. Staying warm. Got the propane going full blast.
Yeah, I'm sure as the show goes on, we'll be able to watch you descend into turn into what's his name? The guy from The Shining. I don't remember the character's name. Jack. Yeah, he's played by Jack Nicholson. But how he freezes at the end. That's how Jason's gonna look at the end of this show.
Gonna have frost on the beard.
Yeah, and then of course we're here with our guest of the evening, David Blanco. How you doing?
Pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here. You got me in another part of the country for today's interview, but I'm glad I made it, and no incident. So I apologize for the last time I was scheduled. I missed the time because I had a slight accident, but nothing personal, just a vehicle problem that couldn't get around. So
things like that happen. We understand, but it is a bummer when it happens at the last minute, and people want to see your face on the internet.
Well, here we go. Let me give him a good shot. There it is.
So actually, before we start talking about the cigars and the brand and everything, I want to mention we do have a couple of special things tonight. So we are doing a giveaway, and I'm trying to think of how to say this, but we've been advised that it may not be great for us to be giving away cigars, unfortunately, because of the FDA. They do have some problems with us because we're part of a store. We're not really allowed to give cigars away for free. So what we're doing tonight, we're going to pick two winners. At the end of the show, if you ask a question, you're entered to win. They're going to win one of these nice little prize packs from Blanco Cigars. And all we ask is that you pay 99 cents for it. I'm going to pay for shipping. It's going to be free. Otherwise, you just have to pay 99 cents to get around the FDA. But if you're not a winner, we've got it. I know. It's terrible, isn't it?
99 cents. This is just semantics. We got to do this goofy stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But if you don't win, we do now have the guys that run the Cigar Federation store now have some of Blanco's products in stock. David's going to tell us about them a little bit here in a few moments. And if you order within the next week, that is before. Let me pull up a calendar here because I don't want to give people the wrong date. If you order before the end of January, before February 1st, and you use the code CigarChat Blanco, you're going to get 20% off everything from Blanco Cigars. So that's an event special we're doing for this show. We're trying to we're trying to give back a little bit for our viewers. So if you guys want to pick up some of David's cigars, Cigar Federation's the place to do it. At least for the next week.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
For the next week.
Hey.
You'll always be able to get them, just not at this great deal.
Yeah, you just won't get a fantastic deal on them like you are right now. So now let's talk about your cigars a little bit. You, of course, run Blanco Cigars, as I kind of mentioned. And you've got a bunch of lines that are under the Blanco name. And then a little bit later, we'll talk about, you do a lot of blending for other people. We'll get to that, though. So let's talk about, can you just go over what lines you have available?
Sure. So as you kind of showed in that pack there, that will give people a visual if you hold it up, and I can talk about it from, as you're looking on the screen from left to right, the Primos Premium selection, or Primos Premium cigars, is the ones with the brown gold wrappers on the left side of that bag as you look at the screen. One is in a Rosado and one is in Maduro. Both three are aged Habanos. The middle one in the black and silver band is the Blanco 9. And then the two on the right with the beautiful bands in gold and green are the Liga Exclusiva de Familia in Pennsylvania Broadleaf Maduro on the far right. And then the torpedo-looking cigar there is the Connecticut Shade version. So that is some of our core.
I thought this was a torpedo, and then when I pulled one out, I noticed that it's actually a Salomon.
Yeah, Salomon. I can't see the bottom of the bag, so I knew it appeared to be the torpedo, but probably Salomon. There you go.
There you go.
There it is.
Kind to see it.
There you go. So these are some of the core lines we have. The really quickly, the most premium cigars, Rosado and Maduro, have a 3-year aged Habano wrapper on it, different fermentation. That's why one is a Rosado, one is Maduro. They're a Nicaraguan, Honduran filler binder combination. And when we brought that cigar out back 2007-ish, it was rated Best Value Cigar of the Year by Cigar Aficionado when they come out with their best rating in top 25 stuff. The Blanco 9 is our highest rated cigar to date. They got a 95 in CA, a 93 in smoke, a 90 in snob. We tied the Cuban Cohiba in Cigar Aficionado in the Lancero, which really put us on the map. Because I'm a Lancero whore, for those of you that know me. And I was very proud of that because the Cuban Cohiba is one of them, the Lancero in particular, is one of the more popular ones, made famous by Fidel Castro, unfortunately. So we've done very well with that. And just recently we got Cigar of the Year on irabusto.com 2017 with the Blanco 9 as well, Cigar of the Year. So can't get better than that. We're doing very well. The Liga Exclusiva, the last 2 cigars, the one that comes in the Connecticut and the Maduro, which is a Pennsylvania broadleaf, they're all Nicaraguan filler binder combinations. The blends are entirely different, one from the other, not just the wrapper. My father prefers the Connecticut, so I blended that for him, and that's specifically his favorite cigar. We got a 92 rating in Smoke Magazine with that one. And then the Pennsylvania Broadleaf Maduro, interestingly, we buy that wrapper from the Amish up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. There's some tobacco up there, old school, not all the pesticides and highly chemicalized fertilizers and stuff. So they really do it well. Very unique flavor profile on that. The Maduro is all Nicaraguan as well. That's a little bit fuller flavor. That rated number 2 cigar of the year as voted by the consumers this year, 2017 on Irabusto. So phenomenal response to those 2 cigars in particular. Very happy. Price points on those anywhere from $5 to $10 pretty much, depending on the state you're in. Those are our MVPs. So
there is one that I want to highlight, which is one that you gave me one at the show this year. The Blanco 9 Menudos, which is kind of it's like a half Churchill. It's really a petite, you could call it a petite Corona, you could call it a Cigarillo. I call it a half Lancero.
That's what it is.
Because it's really the same cigar as this, just about this long, actually.
Yeah, it's a 4-inch 38 Lancero.
And those are like $3.
A 5-pack MSRP is $16.95. So yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
That's great.
And that's basically the same as the Lancero. It's just for those guys that, well, this is a perfect example. Our buddy right here who's freezing his buns off over there may not want to spend as much time as a 7-inch Lancero, but he can still take the Menudo out and enjoy a cigar and not freeze. So this is why we do it. For the extreme cold weather, the extreme warm weather, or if you just want a quick smoke and still want the flavor profile, the Lancero gives you a great opportunity, and the Minuto, which is in a 5-pack, even gives you a better opportunity with time. So.
And I'm smoking as I just held up, I'm smoking the 9 Lancero. It's sweet, it's spicy, it's got that sweet chocolate broadleaf kind of flavor, but then it's backed up with a little bit of kick, which I like.
Nice. So the filler on that the filler on the 9 is a triple Lajero, early priming, all Nicaraguan cigar. So it has that spice that you're talking about, but not the overbearing spice that when you hear other people use the word Lajero, you think, oh my God, it's going to be a pepper bomb if it's a triple Lajero.
It's not quite a pepper bomb for sure.
Right. Lito Gomez is a phenomenal cigar maker, and he has a double Lajero, and it's a chisel, and that's really a spicy cigar. So when I tell people, that they know about that cigar, and I say triple Lajero, they go, oh my God. It's not at all. It's more balanced as far as flavor profile. It's an Oscuro Corojo wrapper, so you really get the deep, rich notes and tones in the smaller ring gauge, the Minutos and the Lanceros, which is why I prefer the Lancero on that side. Personally, but it is what it is. Now, we do have a big ring gauge 9 because the regular 9 line was all 52 ring gauge except the Lancero. Mm-hmm. Guys are like, listen, man, you're not making a big ring gauge for us, and we want it a little stronger. Can you do something? So I went back to the drawing board, and I tried to just make the regular 9 blend, and I'm holding a double Corona in my hand, into a 58-60 ring gauge, and it came flat. You just couldn't do it. So I had to re-engineer the entire blend. I used the same core 3 fillers. I added a 4th for space. I changed the binder to a Lajero binder, and at that point I was like, well, I need to find something else with a deeper, richer flavor. And I found a Habano Ligero wrapper that we have in the factory. So
there you go.
Six Ligeros on a 58 ring gauge. So it takes about 2 hours to smoke.
Yeah, I could see that being a slow burner.
Oh, yeah. But again, it's early priming on the Ligero. So even though it's deeper, richer, it has a little more nicotine kick to it, it's not going to blow your mouth up. You get a lot of flavor from it. That's pretty much my genre, is a lot of flavor, not as much spice. I don't like too much hot sauce on my food, if I'm going to make the analogy. And I like to taste when I'm, all the spices that I got going on there, not just, pepper it out. So you usually get a lot of flavor from our cigars.
And then what are you smoking, Jason?
I'm smoking the Liga Exclusiva PA Broadleaf.
Looks like what I give you there. What size is that? I can't even tell.
This is the Gordo. I think this is like a 6 by 60 or something.
Yep, that's the 6 1/4 by 60. We call it a Grand Toro. So I give you the big one.
Which is good. I will say that for being a 60 ring gauge, I would guess that you adjusted the blend a little bit for the ring gauge, because you're definitely getting the full flavor experience. It doesn't feel muted at all.
Absolutely, that's the trick. You gotta slightly play with the percentages and the ratios in the bigger ring gauges if you want to grow up the ladder. Some blenders don't do that, but that's why when you get larger ring gauges, sometimes you get washed out. It's like adding too much water in your Kool-Aid. It just becomes
We got a couple of audience questions here. Let me.
We have an audience? I thought it was just us.
No, we've definitely got an audience. So here's a layup from Bob Dog. He wants to know, which Blanco cigar would you recommend for somebody that likes broadleaf, Nicaraguan filler, medium to full bodied with a nice spice kick? You already answered that one.
I guess it'd be the Liga Exclusiva de Familia Pennsylvania broadleaf in any one of the 6 sizes we make it in. So you pick the size, we got the cigar for you. That's what I would recommend.
And Samuel Purdy wants to know if you're going to be bringing.
I got to give him a shout out. What's up, Sam? I know this guy, good guy. He's up in the Cleveland, upstate New York area up there. I've seen him at a few events. Love you, buddy. Thanks for dialing in on the show today. What's the question?
He wants to know if you're going to be bringing your new line to the next Cleveland, Ohio event schedule.
Oh, yes. Might not be ready before that. I might be there in the springtime, so I don't know if the new lines are going to be ready, but they will be ready by the summer. And I guess we're segueing into what's the next line of cigars, right?
Yeah.
So if you want me to picture that, we have 2 new blends coming out with Cigar Obsession cigars. Right now we have the first third, second third, and final third. We're going to be coming out with a 4th blend. It's going to be called the IF Selection and the BG Reserve. The IF Selection is the first cigar that I haven't blended that I am going to be selling as one of our lines. He's a personal friend of mine, and he's the master blender at the Plasencia factory. His name is Ivan Fajardo, and I wanted to give him the opportunity to bring out a cigar with his name on it. He's behind such gems as, get ready for this one, Casa Magna, Nica Puro, Black Market, Monte Cristo Espada, the Timeless by, come on guys, help me out. Nat Sherman, thank you. The Romeo and Julieta 505, I didn't say that one. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. He's behind all of these blends, and none of you have ever heard his name. So, the Plasencia Almafuerte, another one.
Wow.
So, I mean, he's going to have a cigar with his name on it, and I want to be able to bring it out. It's going to have 4 sizes. The BG Reserve, and he's going to have, I think it's a Habano wrapper he's doing for it. BG Reserve is going to be Brian Glenn Reserve, the 5th and final installment of the line. Is going to be a Mexican San Andreas Maduro wrapper, or very dark wrapper. And we're going to do that in 3 sizes with just that wrapper. And the 4th one, we're going to use the Mexican and the natural and do a barber pole. So
that was the next question, actually, from Connor Comstock. From Samuel Purdy. From Gary Williams. I'm getting caught up in the question because in typical fashion, Facebook is apparently updating things, so I can't even get to Facebook on my laptop. So I'm looking at it in our little widget on the video. That was Gary Williams Jr. wanted to know about when the barber pole was coming out.
There you go. So that we'll hopefully have that out by late spring, May, maybe June. I'm trying, guys. I can't rush it. It's about aging some tobaccos that we want to make sure everything comes out right. So,
I mean, that's a common thing in this. We've all had a cigar that was released too early.
yeah, do it.
And it's never a good idea for anybody. You never want to be the guy that releases a cigar and then says, "Let that sit in your humidor for 6 months because it's not ready."
Yeah, well, we know the cigar works, the blends work because we've had aged stuff, but now it's how much do we need to make the run for production, and that's where we're working right now with fermenting product to make sure that the material is ready for production to come out at a certain time. And if it takes a little bit longer, depending on temperature and humidity and just the overall ambiance of Nicaragua, which is quite warm and sometimes more humid than less humid. Sometimes it takes a little longer to ferment things, and that's just the way it is. So, but you get
always worth the wait.
Yeah, it's always worth the wait.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break for one of our sponsors, and then we'll be back with more of your questions because they're piling up here, and I'm trying to get through them. So we'll be right back.
Brought to you by Gurkha Cigars. Gurkha Cigars, makers of the world's finest cigars. Try the 93 rated Heritage featuring Rosado, Ecuadorian Habano wrapper, Nicaraguan binder, and Dominican, Pennsylvanian, and Nicaraguan fillers. Blended by Gurkha's blending team at American Caribbean Cigars, it is hand-rolled Nicaraguan, available in 35-count boxes. Talk to your local B&M about the Heritage today, or talk to them about other fine Gurkha cigars. Whatever your taste preferences, Gurkha has a cigar that's right for you.
All right, welcome back to Cigar Chat with David Blanco. I'm your host, Trip. We're live on Facebook. Ask a question if you're watching because you can win some cigars. Though I have to just say it as a disclaimer, you'll have to pay a mere 99 cents, which is, I mean, that's the cheapest cigars you're going to buy this year.
Hey, they're inexpensive. They're not cheap. But that's
Jason, I'm going to go through these questions a little bit. I'm going to let you ask a question because I've been doing all the talking.
So, just kind of let's go into tobacco a little bit. Do you have a type of tobacco that you really like to work with?
Yes. The type is the type that doesn't have lingering aftertaste effects that bite me in the back of my throat so I don't look around after I smoke a cigar and wonder where the cat went that took a shit in my mouth. So what I'm saying basically is you'll find that a lot of my cigars, in fact, all of my cigars, have a very clean finish. Most blenders have their own fingerprint and style of how they blend, like an artist with paintings, whether it's Rembrandt or Picasso, you can tell their work. It's the same thing with cigar blenders. Pepin, if you smoke a lot of his stuff, you notice a certain tendency he has. Or Fuente, or Lido Gomez, as I mentioned earlier. These guys make you can tell a certain cigar profile that they have an influence on. I don't necessarily do that with a flavor profile. What it is an absence of aftertaste, of lingering bitiness, because I don't like those type of tobaccos that do that to my palate, and I know a lot of people that don't like it either. So the best thing I could say is most of my cigars have a very clean finish. Both of you are smoking different cigars right now. Do either one of them hit you in the back of the neck and have an accident?
Not at all.
No.
Yeah, neither of them have that kind of like. I compare it to like when you add way too much pepper to something and you get like that clinging spice in the back of your throat.
Or you eat a sharp cheese and you have that aftertaste in your mouth for a while. You don't get that with my cigar. So any tobacco that gives that to me, and that can be tobacco from any country, from any priming, from any varietal, depends on the soil. That's what really affects that type of thing. So there's a lot of tobacco from the Dominican Republic that'll do that. There's some from Mexico. We even have some from Nicaragua that I don't use, particular varietals in certain fields because I know it's prevalent in certain areas, and there's different growing areas around the country. So I stay away from those tobaccos. Sometimes I try to use them anyway because when you blend them and meld them with other tobacco, it kind of finishes it off a little bit. But most of the time it doesn't, and I'll end up taking it out and replacing it with something else that provides me the flavor profile and aroma that I'm looking for. So.
All right, so I've got another viewer question. This one actually is from Connor Comstock.
Okay.
He wants to know if you have any sampler packs, and he knows he could go online and check, but then he would miss the show. He's been dying to try them for a while. So if you go to store.cigarfederation.com right now, you can get 20% off some sampler packs.
There you go.
I'm not trying to be a shill here, but I want you guys to get a good deal. Use the code CigarChat Blanco, and there are some sampler packs that include they're kind of modeled after this one, so you get a little bit of everything. Or you just entered yourself into a contest, so you might win this sampler pack right here.
Super.
Let's see. Oh, here's a good one from Bob Dog. I like this question. First, he says, "Thank you for your service," which we thank you for your service.
Listen, I'm lucky enough to be able to serve the country, and it's an honor to do so. Not everybody can do it or is able to do it physically or mentally, and it's just how I give back, and it's an honor to do
it. He wants to know if you've got a favorite military training exercise.
Favorite military training exercise. I love jumping out of planes, so if that counts.
I've noticed that from your Facebook.
That's pretty good. Let's see, what other favorite I love shooting at the ranges. I love blowing stuff up. I enjoy serving. I do it now not because I have to. It's because I like to do it. I enjoy doing it, and I like giving back. And I pretty much enjoy my job in the military. So all of it.
Nice.
I love the men, the camaraderie with the men, leading the men, whether it's training or combat. I mean, nobody wants to be in combat, but once you've been in combat, it's a certain bond that you've made with those men that you're hard pressed to ever find again in another type of situation. So it melds you. Kind of like the show Band of Brothers. I mean, there's a reason why they call it Band of Brothers, because you do become, in certain aspect in life, you do become brothers.
That makes sense. We've got another question from Elaine McBride. She wants to know what we're smoking, and if you have any plans to come to Missouri. So first, we'll start off with what we're smoking. I'm having a fantastic Liga 9 Lancero.
I got the Liga Exclusiva with the Pennsylvania broadleaf.
I'm trying to see where this is at because on my screen I'm really tiny. This is the Blanco 9 Double Corona that will be lit when this show is over.
You just can't smoke inside.
Yeah.
Well, you could. You just lose your deposit and probably have to pay a fine.
We don't want to. Because actually, I like this place. I'd like to come back. So.
Yeah, they wouldn't be happy if you lit a cigar in there, I'm betting. But are you planning on coming to Missouri anytime soon?
We've had a couple shops actually ask us to come out there and do an event. Now, I don't go north of the Mason-Dixon line until like May, June. So the way I usually do my events is I'm in the southern half of the country during the winter months, and then the northern half of the country during the summer months. When I'm not out of the country, that is. When I'm not in Europe or in the factory doing tours, because we have tours to the factory as well. We have one in April going for a week down to the factory for, we're going to actually, my tours are a little bit different. I just don't go to Esteli and show you, here's the factory, here's the fields, and we're done. So I'm kind of like the Anthony Bourdain of cigar factory tours. So if you guys aren't familiar with Anthony Bourdain, check him out. It's a great show on. I think he's on CNN now or something.
Yeah, he's on CNN now.
Right, so he's a foodie kind of guy. I'm a foodie guy, but of course my passion is cigars. I love rum. I love the beach, and I love to travel. So we fly into Managua for the tour. We go to Granada. We spend time there, which is one of the oldest colonial cities in Central America. I was actually there 2 days ago throwing an event for the Nicaraguan Cigar Festival before I came here to Vegas. I arrived here yesterday, so actually I was there yesterday technically. Wow, that's crazy. Then we go to Esteli, of course, for the cigar facet element of the tour, and that's seed to box. And then we do a rum pairing evening with Flor de Caña. And then we go to the beach in Las Panitas, which is the Pacific coast, and we spend a lot of time on the beach enjoying, and we spend a couple nights there. And then we go to the main city that's right inside, which is the old capital of Nicaragua, which is León. It was the old capital, and the Spaniards had it back when it was a colonial country. And we get to see another old city. So we see León, Granada, Managua, Esteli, and the beach. There's no other tour. None.
That sounds like a fantastic tour. I have one question. Where do you eat in Granada? I've eaten at some really good restaurants there. I'm just curious which ones you hit.
There are few. And I know what I do, and there's a main thoroughfare where there's a lot of cafes sitting outside.
Oh, yeah.
If you're talking about the main cartera. And what I do is, and this is the beautiful part about my tour, is that I look around at everybody and I go, where would you guys like to eat?
Nice.
And then after that, I say, what would you guys like to do? Would you guys like to go to the casino, the bar, the dance club? We're free-flowing, man. This is not like this itinerary, like everybody follow me, this is the White House tour, your exits will be in front and back. It's very free-flowing. When we go to every one of those cities, I show them the major spots to be seen as far as the architecture in the buildings and the beautiful fountains and things of that nature. But after that, I say, here are our options. You guys pick. So for me, every tour is just a little bit different. Sometimes we go to the old hotel right off the main drag there, and we go sit there and have coffee and smoke cigars in the grotto. Sometimes we sit and we go to the lake. Sometimes we'll take the boat tour to the islands out of there. They have an island chain there.
Oh, yeah.
And they have restaurants on the island. Sometimes I like to do that. So we try to keep it fresh and have every tour just a little bit customized to the tour members themselves.
And if people want information on how to get on one of those tours, where can they get that?
BlancoCigars.com. There's a tour page. There's a factory tour page. There's an itinerary listed day by day, but like I said, that's our general itinerary page. It actually has Honduras listed in there because what we used to do is do half the trip in Nicaragua, and then we would drive and do the half the trip in Honduras. There's only about an hour and a half drive in between with the border. But what we found out was that people are seeing the same thing. A factory is a factory is a factory. So what we decided to do was cut out the Honduran side and stay in Nicaragua and see all of the beautiful things there are to see, like volcanoes and coffee plantations and all the cities I just mentioned, not to mention the beach. So we kind of amended it. So it's not exactly accurate on the website, but we also have a frequently asked question page about, is it safe? Because that's always the number one question.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It's safe, guys. My family's been there since the 60s, and I've been going there for 20 years. Nobody's ever had an issue with feeling unsafe or not being comfortable. What should I wear? How much money should I bring? Customs and things like that. So we have that, and we have photos of some of the places we go. If you want to see more, check out my Facebook pages, which I have multiple, but I post a lot of video of the factory, the beaches, and everything else. Instagram, I'm on there too. You'll see a lot of the stuff I do down there as well. We try to bring people down, not only to the factory, but wherever I travel, whether it's Europe, Canada, and I try to bring people with me on this adventure. So we make it as interactive as possible so you guys see what it is to be a cigar manufacturer or a brand owner traveling around and seeing different parts of the world.
Awesome. And speaking of the safety of Nicaragua, it feels very safe. I mean, when you're down there, you don't feel like, it doesn't feel sketchy usually, even at night. Like people are just nice. It's very weird. And it's officially the safest country in Central America. A couple years ago on safari, we built some houses in Oscar Gomez, and we were in Oscar Gomez after night by ourselves, just three white dudes walking around in Oscar Gomez, and it doesn't feel like you're going to get mugged like it does in most parts of Central America.
Well, it can be. I mean, there are elements.
It can be dangerous.
Right. So here's the place I would tell you not to go. Down in certain areas of Managua, the main cities in Central America. Yes.
Actually, Managua is probably the place where I felt the least safe.
Yeah, there are some areas where there's any major concentration of people. And the capitals of the Central American countries are where most of the population exists because of job opportunities. There's over 6 million people in Managua. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah,
as a result, there's a lot of poverty, and as a result, there's a lot of crime. You start going into other places where I was mentioning, not as much crime. We're not a little bit because they know there's a heavy tourist element there. Mm-hmm. There's also pickpocketing and things of that nature. But violent crime in those areas are very low because they're not looking to risk getting in any type of confrontation. They're looking to do some type of property crime. Steal your purse when you got it sitting on the chair and you're not watching it, or things like that. So, but on the whole, we've never had any issues on any of the tours. I should knock on wood when I do that. for all the things going on down there. So it's a beautiful place, and I've had people come back on our tours multiple times. So it's been a great time for them. So.
Nice. We're gonna take another quick break here. We'll be right back with more with David Blanco.
This show is sponsored by Cigar Oasis. Don't spend all your time worrying about your cigar wrappers cracking, splitting, or falling apart from humidity fluctuation issues. Set it and forget it by choosing Cigar Oasis, a professional solution which provides equal distribution of humidity with precise electronic controls. Monitor your cigars through the internet using the Smart Humidor Wi-Fi attachment. Why don't you spend all your time enjoying your cigars and relaxing, and let Cigar Oasis protect your cigars? Cigar Oasis has solutions for any humidor. Make sure you set it and forget it today.
Your hat's in the way.
So I'll. Dave, my pictures. We're back now. So these are both pictures from the Padron farm in Esteli.
Okay. So that's where I got you.
I was there last year for Puro Sabor, and I snapped a couple pictures. My wife thought they looked really good, so she had them framed.
Nice.
But this isn't about my pictures. This is about Mr. David Blanco.
She brought that up. Let me just say it's not only about David Blanco. It's not too late to, as far as time have passed by, to give our condolences to the Padron family for the loss of their patriarchal family, and the Oliva family that also lost their patriarch, and both in last month of December. So our condolences to the family. I was in attendance to the funeral to both, and really good people. And I mean people. I don't just mean cigar people. There are people. There's other facets to everybody that we talk to here. We all have our hobby here, which is for you guys that are watching, cigars. And then some of us have it as a livelihood. But even those of us that have it as a livelihood do other things, and there are other facets of who we are. And they were just good people, not to mention great cigar makers. So
and cigar icons.
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than those two people, And then just recently, the year before, we lost Carlo Fuente. So, and then Ajo before that. So, an entire generation of people in the industry that were iconic within the past year and a half have vanished from the earth, and it's a great loss, and we missed them all. So,
well said.
Yeah.
All right, we've got some more audience questions here. Let's see. John Chasomaris wants to know where in Canada he can find Blanco cigars.
All right, so at the moment, we are in the Ontario province, which is Toronto, Niagara Falls, all that area up there, guys. The actual locations of the shops, either you'd have to check my website for some of them that might be listed, or you'd have to call your local brick and mortar, since we have a distributor that handles that up there. I'm not always privy to which shops buy from the distributor, since we don't sell to them directly. Mm-hmm. The distributor would have that information. So I don't know every shop that our product is in, but we might have a few of them listed. For example, I know for sure we're in Cigar Experience in Niagara Falls. And I don't want to even say any other names, because at this point I'm going to get them wrong, but I know we're in a bunch in Toronto. There's a shop north of Toronto. We've actually I visited them as well. So if you look in that province, call up your local tobacconist if you're in that province. We're not in Quebec. We're not in Alberta. We're not in any other places yet. But this year we're looking to expand distribution into the other provinces of Canada.
All right, Jason, I'll let you ask a question. I've been running through these audience questions,
nice.
But I want to let you get some words in.
As kind of a tag along to that, is Canada one of the most difficult markets to get into because of taxes and the import madness that you have to go through?
It's more difficult than some, not as difficult as others. Taxes are a problem, but I'm not too daunted by the taxes from the perspective that I come from, which is a boutique brand that values, that has a lot invested with the value of our product. That is to say, in the U.S., our products go anywhere from $5 to $10, $12, $15, depending on the cigars. All very reasonably priced cigars. So what I do is I will adjust our pricing scale to ensure that we are as competitive as possible in those other countries, which means we cut our profit margin, but this is what we do to gain a foothold in those markets, and allow people to experience our cigars at an affordable price. That's the key, affordable price. And we're in Europe doing the same thing. We're in Africa now. Australia is the big one.
Cool.
But that's the big one. The big one is, if you think it's bad in Canada, Australia is absolutely horrendous. They have now gone to plain packaging laws.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's terrible.
All cigar shops are pretty much, I don't want to say all, but most of the cigar shops in that country are closed. It's not worth the business. So it's driven the industry over there online a lot. And those guys, they literally have naked cigars when they tell you what you're buying.
Yeah, they have those. They don't have like paper bands that are like a weird color. I know in Canada, when plain packaging goes into effect, they're going to have, I think they're dark green bands with white text on them that just says the name of the cigar. That's all you can have on it.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, boxes, forget it. And then the amount of tax that's levied in Australia makes it ridiculous. That, as far as I know, is the most expensive area on the planet for cigars. So it's phenomenally difficult to do business over there. But we do some, just not as much as we'd like.
You have another question, Jason, before I start ripping through audience questions?
Just a quick comment that the band thing is really a shame, because like that's an awesome cigar band. It's difficult to focus, but if you see this in a shop and like get to look at it in person, these Liga Exclusivas, that's a really cool band.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to mention how plain packaging is in my opinion, plain packaging is even worse than like the FDA stuff that's going on right now, because packaging is it's such a staple in the cigar industry. Like having a gorgeous box, having a gorgeous band is really important to many, many companies, and that's what sets your product apart. And not only that, it's so traditional. That's like people collect cigar boxes from 100 years ago because they had beautiful packaging. And if we move to plain packaging in 100 years, you're not going to see beautiful collectible cigar boxes anymore, which is sad.
Sure. Yeah, there's a whole industry that would die. The printers are going to scream if that happens. I mean, it's the amount of detail and artistry that goes into it. I just see it as a different form of art, but it's still art.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'll get to some audience questions here. Jeff says, "What's up, Dave?"
Jeff, hey, my boy in Arizona. He went down to the trip. He won a trip to Nicaragua from us.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
He wants to know how the event for Pro Sabor was.
Well, I only got to be there for the first day. But what I saw of it, it was the best one so far. And every year it gets better and better. And this year is no exception. So they had the largest attendance so far. Our event was at a boutique cigar lounge in Old Granada. It's called Ciudad Lounge. So if
I've been there.
We know all about it then. And it was myself and a few other companies that hosted it, and we gave everybody 2 cigars. We gave them the Liga, and the other companies that were in sponsorship also gave some cigars. And it was actually a benefit. We were raising money. It was a fundraiser for the orphanage in Esteli, as well as the old folks home in Esteli. So we split the proceeds from that 50-50 and it was a ticketed event. A lot of media came, friends of mine that were there that were from the industry. It was good to see them as well. So we had a good time. And I shook their hand at the end of the night around 11:30 at night, and hopped on the red eye. I had to drive to Managua for a 2:30 flight to to Vegas. So it was horrendous. It was I get it. It was actually 3 planes. It was Managua to Lauderdale, Lauderdale to Dallas, Dallas to Las Vegas.
Oh man.
Oh.
Yeah, it took about 12 hours to get there.
Jeez. That's rough.
And I started it at 2:30 after an event. So,
Ciudad is a really cool place because the owner's there, like the owner is the head chef, and he makes incredible food. And he's also a total cigar geek.
Yeah, absolutely, and his wife, lovely lady as well.
Yeah, his wife is fantastic.
You're missing it this year, man. How come you didn't go down?
I wanted to. I just couldn't make it work. We are going to a couple of us are going to Pro Cigar this year instead.
That's a good time too, man.
But next year I'm going to Pro Sabor again because it was like the time of my life. It was just so much fun hanging out with everybody there, all the other media guys, and all the cigar manufacturers. It's a fantastic event.
Are you friends with Thor? Are you familiar with Thor from Cigar Plus?
Actually, I've met Thor once, but I know his mom pretty well.
Yeah, they were both there. We talked at length at the event. They're originally from Chicago, so they're friends of mine. So it was good to catch up. I hadn't seen them for a while because I'm all the traveling. But yeah, like I said, there are a lot of people there I knew, and obviously had a great time.
Yeah, it's kind of the same feel as IPCPR. You're seeing all these people you know but don't get to see very often, which is nice. Let's see. I've got a bunch more questions here. Carlos Valencia wants to know if there's a McDonald's down there.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, they do have McDonald's in Nicaragua. They have McDonald's. They have Burger King.
KFC.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got all kinds of stuff. Pizza Hut. Subway.
Let's see. Bob Simo wants to know. He really likes Cameroon wrappers and wants to know if anything else in your line besides the CO has Cameroon wrappers.
No, at this moment it's just the CO second, third with the Cameroon. But boy, there's so many cigars that I want to make that I've blended that I have in the can ready to go, and I wanted to at least get something out in every wrapper that we have availability to, which is just about everything.
Yeah.
And so before I do another remake of a wrapper or another usage of a wrapper on a line, I want to make sure I cover the gamut with everything else. So like I said, I want to give as much variety out there as possible. And then once I've covered all the bases with all the different wrappers that people like, then I can reblend something as a new cigar using a similar wrapper with a different blend. But I don't want to refocus on the same wrapper yet.
Let's see. Actually, that's a good time to bring up. You blend a lot of cigars for other people, for other companies. Some of the companies that we've had on the show, like Warfighter, and then other companies, Hiram and Solomon. I'm sure. I mean, there's a bunch of them that I'm forgetting. What's it like being the guy that people go to?
It's an honor. It's a testament. I see it as a testament to my work, and people have recognized it and enjoy my work so much that they've said, I want you to make my cigar. And that's humbling and an honor. It's an honor to have people say that to me. And I've been blending now for 20 years. And it's an ongoing process that you never stop learning about blending. It's like martial arts. You continue to train and hone your skills, but you never make grandmaster until, it's just something you keep doing. So, because things change, there's different things that happen in our industry with different leaves and different plants that come out, hybrids. We have geneticists on staff that are continuing to develop new wrappers, new strains, new plants, different areas that we grow them in produce or yield a different product. So we're constantly pushing the envelope to do different things. So you never stop learning and how you can use that and incorporate it into your skill set. And I try to be as diverse as possible and using as many different tobaccos as I can. Our family has access to about 167 different varietals of tobacco.
Wow.
The Plasencia factory, which I think is the largest in one place availability of different tobaccos to use. So as a painter is concerned, you can only paint with the colors that you have on your palette. I have a huge palette of colors available to me, so that's why I have the ability to do what I do, not only for myself with my own brands, but for others as well. And that's one of the reasons the Plasencias are as accomplished and successful as they are, is because they have access to such large amounts of variety tobacco. And I'm very lucky to be part of that family, to be able to have access to it.
I know you're obviously part of the Plasencia family, but how did you get involved with making cigars?
Okay, so how I'm associated with the Plasencia family, just so you're aware, my father and my father and Nestor Plasencia are cousins. Don Nestor, as he's called, the older Plasencia, Nestor Senior. So those two guys are cousins. I call Nestor Senior uncle because of his age, different generation. Now Nestor Andreas, Nestor Jr., I call him cousin, and his brother Gustavo, and his younger brother as well, Jose Luis. But how I got into the business is an interesting story. I was the first one in the family that was born in the United States, and I was born in Chicago. If you couldn't tell by my accent, so I'm a Chicago Cuban American, as I like to call myself. But I grew up as any American kid would. You know, I grew up wanting to be the police. You know, the tobacco industry was not a part of our vernacular, other than it was part of our life in the fact that the old men in the family that was there, they would always be smoking cigars, playing dominoes, and drinking Cuban coffee in a wife beater. You know, the proverbial Cuban men smoking cigars. So I was always around it. It was always something that was there. But, you know, it wasn't an opportunity to get into business because we weren't in the business in the United States. Our family had to adjust to the America that they now lived in, and that was behind them in Cuba, the immediate family, that is. So growing up wanting to become the police, I joined the military when I was 18, used my GI Bill, went to the university, and got my criminal justice degree, among other things. I had like 2-3 majors. I also got my paramedic license, and I put my name on every list, as anybody who wants to be a civil servant does. And I was called by the Cook County Sheriff's Department, so I took that job because that was the first one that came up, and I was a deputy sheriff for Cook County. The next year, the Chicago Police and the Chicago Fire Department called me. And after being a sheriff in Cook County, I realized I did not want to be part of that problem or mess anymore. So I went to the Chicago Fire Department. And I was there for 7 years. And while I was there, which is now the mid-'90s, so I'm telling you guys my age, this cigar boom hit, and this crazy thing happened where all these yuppies started smoking cigars and wanted to learn about cigars. And this crazy, goofy magazine came out. I think it was called Cigar Aficionado at the time.
Yeah.
This just set into the madness of the cigar boom of the 90s. So meantime, I'm like in my 20s, early 20s, mid-20s. And suddenly all my friends were looking at me because I was the cigar expert, because I had been smoking. And they all thought I was crazy. I was the only guy smoking cigars at my age. And they were like, hey, man, you know about cigars? How do you cut it? How do you light it? What's a good cigar? What's a bad cigar? Hey, can I get a cigar from you? Well, I was like, yeah, sure, here, have a cigar. And then another guy, and I was like, whoa. They're like, hey, man, we'll buy them from you, no problem. Can I have a bundle? And I was just getting these cigars.
Yeah.
So it's like, sounds like there's a business to be had here. You know, maybe this is an opportunity for me and my father and my uncle Francisco to get back into the business that the family had left behind. So in 1998, we got together and incorporated and formed Blanco Cigar Company. And we opened up our factory in Ybor City, which is in the Tampa area. And it was known as Cigar City back in the day. There were more cigars made there in Ybor City than there were in Cuba back in the 20s. So it was the hotbed, traditional place in this country to make cigars. So as a result, there were a lot of Cuban immigrants there that were rollers. I still had family coming out of Cuba that were rollers and used to work in the industry, so we employed them. We bought tobacco from the Placencias, and we rolled them in the States. Unfortunately, my uncle Francisco came down with an illness as a result of his exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam, and ended up in a wheelchair 2 years after we started the business. He was running the factory in '98. My job was to be on the road and do marketing and design work and blending of tobacco and do sales. My father's job was administrative. He was the president of the company. He handled legal, licensing, taxes, things of that nature. So when my uncle Francisco could no longer run the operation, the factory, we had to go somewhere else. So that's when we picked up the phone to the Placencias and said, hey, can we move production down to your facility? And of course they said, come on down, no problem. And so in 2000 is when we actually moved our production out of the United States to Esteli, Nicaragua. And there you go. That's how it happened, out of necessity. So.
And then it just kept going from there, huh?
Not really. Had a hiccup. 2000 was a good year. The first 2 years we were really doing well, and then 9/11 happened.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, little hiccup there. It changed the world as we knew it.
Absolutely.
My father and I were both still in the Army Reserves. So the day of, I had just come home from working on a shift on the fire department. It was a 24-hour shift. And at the time I was married, I had just gotten to bed. 20 minutes later, my wife's shaking me. You got to see something's going on the TV. There's something happened. This plane flew into a building in New York. I got up, and it was like as many of us did at that time, and most of us will remember where we were.
Absolutely.
We all saw the second plane fly into the building. And at that point, the first words out of my mouth were, I wonder where I'll be going. Because I knew that this was an act of war. The world had changed forever as we knew it. And when those buildings fell and we all watched them, I knew that this was catastrophically going to change things. Nobody expected that to happen. However, just shortly after that, the phone rang. It was my father. He was like, hey, you got to drive me to Washington. What are you talking about? He was just mobilized. So he couldn't rent a car because every car that was a rental was gone because all the flights were grounded. So I had to drive him to D.C., and we had a nice long talk in the car, and it was basically, okay, son, you're in charge. Here are the keys. Do your best, and don't screw it up, and keep it going as long as you can. And that's what I did for about 6 months. And then I got a phone call. And I was off to Afghanistan, and I was gone for 18 months. So when I left, we had to close the doors. I gave the keys to somebody and said, if somebody calls for cigars, send them. I think I had 12 reps at the time, more or less.
Wow.
I think it was 12. So we were rolling with some steam. We were doing very well. Yeah. And when that happened, everybody vanished. They're independent reps. They all had portfolios with different brands. We had to close our office, so they just moved down, dropped our line. Mm-hmm. And we closed the doors. I didn't know when I'd be coming back, at least 1 year, maybe 2. My father didn't know how long. He did such a good job in Washington that they sent him to Iraq. So he was in Iraq when I was in Afghanistan. And my mother wasn't too happy about that, but that was the reality. So 2 years fast forward to the end of 2003, I come back, and my father was like, listen, maybe it wasn't meant to be, timing, the world, things happen, And I told him, listen, I said, I've never given up in anything I've ever done in my life. I had everything I've ever invested in, owned or made, invested into the company. And I knew that if I could make it successful the first time, that there's no reason why I couldn't do it a second time, with the slight handicap of not having any money left to invest because it was already invested and already gone. So I had to do it on a shoestring budget and with no reps because they had all moved on. Hey, I'm sorry, my portfolio's full. We don't have the room. Help, sorry, too bad. So I had to hit the road and do it all myself. Came back to the IPCPR, the trade show for our industry, and showed up with a booth. And people were like, hey, what happened? We thought you went out of business, money problems or whatever. It happens all the time in our business, right?
Yeah, all the time.
So, right. They thought, I had a couple years, things didn't go well or whatever, and they thought I vanished. Well, they showed up at our booth, and I was like, well, my father was with me. So I was like, well, he was in Iraq, and I was in Afghanistan. Sorry, but we're back now. They're like, you're kidding me. Thank you so much for your service. I'll take 15 boxes. Back on the map. So this is how we slowly clawed our way back, earning the trust of our customers and basically remaking the company. It was... I talk about it, and not that I'm emotional, but man, I think about what it took for me to get back to where I'm sitting here right now talking to you. And boy, oh boy, what a long and twisted road it was. So after that, of course, the economy took a dump. So, things like disposable income for cigars, when people are losing their houses and foreclosed on, the economy exactly wasn't rolling for our industry. So we had to tighten our belt again. Then we had to sustain the S-chip issue with the Obama administration levying a 41-cent tax, basically, on us with the S-chip issue, which killed a lot of people because listen, we used to import 100,000 cigars at a time before that, and I would have to pay, $2,500 in federal excise tax to get them released. Mm-hmm. So it went from $2,500 for 100,000 cigars to $41,000 overnight.
Yeah. And you have to pay that before you can have the cigars to sell.
Just to get them out of their warehouse so I can get them in my possession. So I had to buy the product, I had to pay the S-chip, and I hadn't sold a cigar yet. So my cash flow for travel, advertising, marketing was shrinking real quick. So what we had and finally faced and realized is that when we move, we have to set up our own bonded warehouse. So we are now the bonded facility where our product sits. We do not have to extend that 41 cents a cigar until it leaves our warehouse.
Yeah.
And the only time it leaves our warehouse is when it's sold.
Yeah.
So the cash flow isn't tied up. It goes from now the customer's hand, which is the retail shop, to our hand, directly to the federal government, and it's not killing us. So this is one reason we set up our bonded facility, and that didn't happen until we moved out of Chicago, which is where our warehouse was. Even though our tobacco cigar production facility was in Tampa till 2000, when we closed that operation, when we went to Nicaragua for production, we had to have them shipped somewhere. Well, my uncle was out of the picture for any type of work. So my father and I were still living in Chicago. We had to set up a warehouse in Chicago. And as you know, up in the north, most of the major cities up there, liberal type of political situations, they're very anti-smoking, high-tax situation. So I don't care if you were in New York or Chicago or LA or wherever, they started choking our business. So we had now another problem of raising our taxes issues, cost of doing business. So all of this caused us to move out of Chicago, and that happened in 2010. We moved our facility to Clearwater, Florida, back to our roots right outside Tampa where it was originally. It was a great place to go. So since 2010, we've been down there. And then the last dagger that they tried to throw was the FDA on us, right? So we survived my uncle's illness and closing the factory, 9/11 and 2 wars, a economy that took a dump on us, S-chip, and now the FDA. All that within the span of 20 years. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Blanco's here to stay. We continue to grow throughout the entire thing. I continue to learn, hone my skills, in my blending skills. And we now have other companies joining us to help grow our company. Like we mentioned before, Hireman Solomon, Warfighter, and a bevy of others that are constantly coming to me for private labels. So, and it's all because of the demand that you guys out there are watching have asked for our product. So you guys have created the demand for our product. We like to thank you as a family. We'd like to thank you as Team Blanco, because I'm those guys sitting here that you're looking at, but there is a virtual legion behind me making this happen. By no means is this a one-man show. I'm just steering the boat. You know, I am not the sail. I am not the oar. I am not the rudder. I'm just steering it. There are many others involved in it. So thank you very much for all the support you guys have shown us throughout the past 20 years. And if it's only been the past few years, thank you for that. And we appreciate the ability to continue to bring you good cigars. So thanks.
That was great. I really enjoyed hearing the story. So
Thanks,
our
man.
last segment, we're going to go a little long here. Is that okay with you, David? We go like 15 more minutes?
I got a few minutes before I light this bad baby up.
Perfect. Yeah, we're holding you back from your cigar, man. I feel bad about that. Our last segment is brought to you by Drew Estate. They make great cigars. Go on Cigar Safari. That's where I got this hat painted. And an interesting tie-in is that when I got this hat painted, when the rest of us were going home, one of the guys on Safari got picked up by David in I think it was like a Maxima or a
I think it was
Sentra.
Yeah, something. I don't know what. Yeah.
You picked him up at the factory so that he could do a double header of the Cigar Safari and then the Blanco tour.
Yeah, that was Don, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was Don Bleeker.
Don from Canada. Yeah, that's right. If Don's watching, how you doing, Don?
Yeah, he's a good friend. I've got one more good question here. Where did it go? Samuel Purdy's been asking. He wants to know what's going on with the American Legions. He says he's waiting on the rebrand, and he wants to know if you've got a timeline for that.
Okay, so I mentioned this in another interview, but if Sam doesn't watch it, I'll be happy to mention it again. So we did a cigar, another one of the brands that we had for a while was called the American Legion. I'm a member of the American Legion. We made that cigar and donated the proceeds to the American Legion. It was a very good cause. We're supposed to have a long-term relationship for them, or with them, to be able to ensure that we could sustain the growth of the brand, and still recoup our cost and then donate the proceeds. And we would do that on a quarterly basis. We'd give them checks. So to do that, as you do any brand, you pre-manufacture things like boxes, packaged and printed material and things of that nature. So we stockpiled all this stuff, and we had figured by year 5, we would be exactly even and not have lost any money for our investment that was to manufacture and travel and all this stuff. So we were still cutting them checks on a quarterly basis, based on all the proceeds that we got and the profit, right? So We got so successful with that about 2.5 years in, I guess people in the American Legion that were on the liberal side of things decided we don't want our name and logo associated with tobacco.
Oh.
We need to stop this right now. And they pressured the National Association up in Indianapolis, where they're headquartered, and got them to rescind the deal that we had. They're like, hey, guess what? Sorry, guys. Can't use our logo and name anymore, but keep sending those checks. At that point, I was $30,000 in the hole. I'm staring at a mountain of cigar rings, a mountain of boxes, a mountain of packaged material that we had already printed, and they're telling me I got to just burn it.
Oh, man.
So I was like, oh, that's great. Meanwhile, we got a 91 rating on the cigar. I had handed the cigar out a couple times at Cigar Fest for CI's Cigar Fest. So, I mean, we had built the brand. We were successful with it. And I guess somebody saw the cigar and realized that the logo was the American Legion logo. We were fully allowed to do that, but they just got pressured to reverse their position. So as a result, we are now rebranding the cigar. I have been doing that, and it looked like I wasn't going to be able to do it because of the FDA. But now the stance is that I can redo it. The packaging doesn't constitute a new brand. So now I can do that. So this year, we're going to try to get the rebranding of what was formerly known as the American Legion Premium Cigar out to the fans. And he asked me for a timeline. I'm trying by June, guys, but don't hold me to it. Because of all the things that are going on with PO, with Hireman Salmon, with Warfighter, and a host of other private labels, those are customers that they're asking to make product for them. They need it for trade shows. They need it at a certain time. I have to honor my commitment to them, and I will provide their product on a timely basis. So, unfortunately, that one project with the American Legion, if I'm expecting to come out this year because I will have time. It's just if something else pops up that I wasn't anticipating or expecting, it might take me a little longer. But I'm hoping to have it out by the summer. I can't mention the name yet because we're still working on some things. Thought I had it settled, and now I didn't have it settled, so I gotta refrain from letting the reveal, as it were. But I'm sorry I have to do that, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it happens. Jason, why don't you go ahead with a question before I pick some winners here?
So I was just thinking that how difficult is it nowadays to find a name that you can use for a cigar? It seems like that's got to be one of the most challenging things.
It can be because there are so many extraneous companies out there that are making cigars that you've never heard of that are so small that they may have thought of your great idea before you did and naming your cigar, and you're like, oh, damn. But what you do is you do a search. You got to do your due diligence. And you just do a search for registered names. Like if I have a name that I want to use, I'm going to go right to the database, and you can look up the name with regard to the tobacco section. If there's any cigars with the name like that or similar to it that might have a conflict or confusion, you can do your due diligence, and you know if you're going to give an objection, or you can challenge it and try to do it anyway. So it can happen, but you try to, you come up with the best name that you want, and usually they have meaning. Like Blanco was my last name, so that was no stretch. But, you want to put an X on anything, I think twice. I would think so. But things like that are issues. So it's not super ridiculous, but it can happen. I mean, you guys are familiar with what happened to AJ Fernandez just recently, right? No? Yes?
I don't think so.
He had to change his whole logo.
Oh, yes. That was was that the American Legion one it was too, or maybe it was the Masons that it was too close to?
No. That was another thing. No. With AJ Fernandez, he had to change his AF Fernandez too close to Arturo Fuente.
Oh, okay.
So he had the A, the J, and the F, but they thought the logo was too similar, and so there was a conflict there, and they politely asked him to change it.
Yeah, that happens a lot in the industry where you're not necessarily going to get a cease and desist, but you'll get a polite letter that says change this, or you'll get the cease and desist next week.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not so polite, but it happens.
Yeah.
So I mean, this happens from time to time. But even a guy like AJ is not immune to it, and he's using his initials from his name. I mean, so you definitely have to be careful, and it's definitely a process you work through, but it can happen.
And we got a couple shout outs here. I wanna just address some of the shout outs from Marshall Morgan. He says you should light up your cigar.
You trying to get in trouble, Marshall? Come on, man.
Tim Beneke, I think that's how you say his name. He just says, "What's up?"
What's up, brother? Good to hear from you. I'm glad you're watching the show. I hope you're staying warm.
Let's see. Jason, why don't you go ahead with another one before we wrap it up here?
Okay. Yeah. So what's something that you're looking forward to in the coming year? Do you have any, like a special project or just maybe like a cool event that you're doing?
I do have a couple things coming up. We're doing some new stuff for Hireman Solomon, as I mentioned. We're going to do some new stuff for Warfighter. And in particular, I'm going to be partnering with a friend of mine who owns a liquor company, also veteran-owned and operated. And he has a bourbon called America Bourbon with an M.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to be doing the America Bourbon Barrel-Aged cigar for that.
Ooh.
So
Ooh,
that's
nice.
fun, yeah, man. Now, that's something that other people have come out with some bourbon barrel-aged stuff and barrel-aged this and barrel-aged that. Let's just say I'm going to take my time and make sure it's done right. So when I bring mine out, it's going to be good to the way I like it and the way everybody out there would like it to be. I'm not disparaging anybody's cigars. I'm just saying that I think we can make something very special. But I'm experimenting with some different ways of actually, and I use the word infusing. I'm experimenting with different ways.
I feel like when it's alcohol, you might be able to use the word infusing.
Okay, so I'm experimenting with some different ways of transmitting the flavor of the bourbon into the cigar. We're going to be using barrels, obviously, in pressurized situations, and I'm also trying a bevy of other things, experimenting to get it right. And so we're going to go out and do some things maybe a little bit different to see how we can accomplish to make sure it's a product that you guys will all love. And we're very excited to do that because we intend to have a cigar out there that is like no other when it comes to the barrel-aged anything. We're very excited to be hopefully one of the first to come out with something special like that.
I'm always interested to see how barrel aging works because it is hit or miss. Everybody's kind of has to find their own kind of process for it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm really interested to see how you do it because I know you're not going to just throw it against the wall until it sticks.
No, well, it's going to be a good product. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm not going to bring it out, and you'll never know if it's not a good product because the only thing you're going to get. So you can guarantee it. Like I said, I don't quit at anything until I get it right. I will solve that equation, and I will get it right, and you guys will be the benefactors of that because you're going to get a great cigar that's very different from anything else out there that's called barrel-aged. That's the desire here. So.
Awesome. Jason, why don't you ask one more question before we close out?
Yeah, so as we're getting to the end here, where can people find you on the internet, social media, if they want to keep track of what's going on?
Okay, I'll give everybody a chance to get a pen and paper. So on Facebook, don't bother friending me on my personal profile because I've reached the 5,000 max limit, and I've got like another 1,000 people backed up that I keep telling everybody, don't friend me because I can't accept any more friend requests. So what I did to solve that problem is I opened a public profile called David Blanco the Man. All one word, no spaces.
It tripped me up. You have to, if you go to facebook.com/David Blanco the Man, that's the easiest way to get it.
There you go. All right, so it's David Blanco the Man. That is basically the same Facebook account I do the same thing on my personal profile as I do on that page because I'm trying to push everybody over that because the benefit of the public profile is there's no limit. I could have millions of people on that. Not that I have millions of people, but there's no limit on it. So the 5,000 limit they put on these personal profiles is unfortunately something Facebook does. So go to David Blanco the Man. You don't you don't friend request me. On public profile, you just like and follow. So you can automatically just follow everything I do by liking and following. And then we have Blanco Cigar Fans. That's our fan page. So we have the fan page, Blanco Cigar Fans, and then David Blanco the Man. The third one, which is my personal profile, you guys, I wish I could friend you all, but I can't friend one more person. Zuckerberg, whatever his name is, Zuckerberg, I don't know whatever his name is. Zuck is somebody. And until he changes that, we got to do it the other way. So you can also find me on Instagram, David Blanco 007. My YouTube channel is David Blanco, or David A. Blanco. And what am I missing? Oh, I got Snapchat for all you hipsters out there. Am I missing? Oh, Twitter.
I think Snapchat's over. I think people are bailing on Snapchat.
Really? It came and gone that quickly?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I'm glad to hear it because I was too many things for me. And then there's Twitter. Twitter's Blanco Cigars. I mean, David Blanco, Blanco Cigars. So I think I covered everything there, right?
I think so.
Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat for you hipsters out there. So that's how you can find me. What are you laughing about? I know you got a man bun under that hat.
Hey, I'm trying to find some winners here. So our first winner, I'm using a random number generator and then going through the comments, is Samuel Purdy.
Hey, nice.
There you go. Get your weasel on, buddy. And our second winner is Elaine McBride. So Elaine McBride and Samuel Purdy send an email to tripp, TRIPP, at cigarfederation.com. I'll have to email you so you can spend your 99 cents to get 5 free cigars from David Blanco.
Hey, can they do that through PayPal?
We're gonna send him an invoice. I think what we're gonna do is kind of set up a product in the store that's 99 cents. So whenever you win, you just buy that product, free shipping, it's done.
Cool.
But send me an email, tripp at cigarfederation.com. That's Tripp with 2 P's. And we'll get your winnings shipped out to you once we've got all that FDA stuff figured out. David, thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Hey, thanks, brother. And again, sorry I missed it earlier, but this is when it was meant to be and happen, and it was a pleasure talking to you guys. And I'm glad everybody out there got to watch it. I hope I was entertaining and everybody enjoyed it and got to learn something a little bit more about Blanco Cigars, myself, and Team Blanco. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, that's what we love to do. We don't just want to get your name out there. We want people to get to know you a little bit. That's what's fun about this is, we're not just interviewing you. We're kind of hanging out for a little while. People get to know you as a person rather than just as the name on the cigar that they like.
Well, for those that don't know, I always have a tagline, and for those of you that do know, I'll give it to you right now. We appreciate you guys staying up and talking to us. But always remember, stay smoky.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, everybody on the Armed Forces Radio Network for listening. Thank you all of our podcast listeners and everybody watching on YouTube. Like and subscribe. We'll be back next week with 2 episodes in a row, or not in a row, but 2 days in a row of sharing our pairings episodes. We're going to have something cool cooked up. Everybody have a safe weekend, and we'll see you next week.